Welcome everybody to another edition of the TalkingWithHeroes.com talk show program. I am Bob Calvert, your host, and I want to welcome you all back to where we're reporting from in Kalagush, Afghanistan. That's Forward Operating Base Kalagush, and we now have more interviews coming up. And before we do that, I want to thank the people that made this trip possible. ReturnToWork.org, BlackHawk.com, FreedomHunters.org, NewsBlaze.com, Number5Jump.com, Sportsman'sWarehouse.com, Eric Chia out of Olathe, Kansas, Colin Clark of Elizabeth, Colorado, MilitaryConnection.com, SoldiersAngels.org, and Chief Warrant Officer 5 retired Dennis McCormack. It's important that I thank them because if it wasn't for them, I would not be here. So I want to thank them all for helping make this trip possible. Our next guest here on Talking with Heroes here in Afghanistan is First Lieutenant Jackson. Welcome, sir, to Talking with Heroes.
Thank you. I joined the Army on April 13th, 1990. I completed my 20 years about 11 days ago or so. Joined down in South Texas in a small town called Edinburgh, which is down at the bottom tip of Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. Live in San Antonio now. Been there for about 10 years. Primary job in the Army is 66 Hotel Mike 5, which is an emergency room nurse. And in about August of this last year, I was shipped to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and began what's called an MCAP course, which is a Mobilization Civil Affairs Qualification course. Completed that course in October. Was shipped to Fort Dix, New Jersey for a month, and then mobilized in November for this tour in Afghanistan. So my job here now is Civil Affairs, Civil Military Operations Center officer in charge of the civil affairs assets here in FOB Kalagush.
So are you part of a team of people then from different places around the country, different branches of the military?
Actually, this entire PRT is a provincial reconstruction team, is made up of 3 different entities of the military. So we have a Navy commander with naval personnel, we have Air Force personnel, and Army personnel. The Army personnel here make up the security forces and the civil affairs assets that we have here on the FOB.
Okay. How long have you been here now?
We have been in country for 2 months in Afghanistan. The total deployment time is 12 months.
Right.
However, you have several months of pre-mobilization deployment and training. We did all of that at a place called Camp Atterbury, Indiana, and we arrived here in March. Civil affairs basically encompasses development, physical development in the area. So things that they need, infrastructure such as roads, canals, bridges, things of that nature, and also physical development like schools, things of that nature, buildings, government buildings, things of that nature. When we arrived in country, there was a learning curve of about 45 days where we first had to kind of figure out who is who in the area. Where is the actual people that are making decisions, the government personnel, the line directors of the area, things of that nature. We also had to get outside the wire to try to figure out where all of these different places are. Afghanistan is very different from the United States in that it has villages that make up the community, and every village is different. So the dynamics of one village may be different than a dynamic of a neighboring village. The law in one village, referred to as tribal law, may be very different than the tribal law of a neighboring village that may be 1 mile down the road. So one of the very first things we did here was really try to jump in with both our feet and try to figure out the people in the area, who's in charge of the area, what the type of culture was here, because Nuristan in our area has a very different culture than some of the other provinces that just locate that are located right next to us. So that was some of the first things we've done here. Since we've been here, we've gotten very heavily involved in the governance portion of development here. We're trying to help establish a functional government in the area so that when American forces and coalition forces leave Afghanistan, they have the ability to continue to do the things that they've been doing without us here helping them along. A lot of the people that we speak to here talk about how things are not the same here as they are in America, and a lot of the government officials I've spoken to have complimented us in the States about the things that we do and the systems that we have in place. And oftentimes we have to remind them that we've had 100+ years to work on our government, and they're only about 6 years in. We arrived here 8 years ago, but we're really only about 6 years in of really trying to help establish and form their government. So it's a very slow-moving process, but we are seeing strides in the progress that they're making.
I was able to interview the governor of the Nuristan province earlier today. Governor
Badr?
Yeah, it was real interesting.
Governor Badr is a very interesting man. I had a conversation with him the other day. He found it interesting that he's actually younger than I, and made some cracks about that to me. But he's got a big job. He's got a hard job ahead of him. He's got several different districts within Nuristan province, which are very difficult to get around in. Nuristan is primarily a mountainous region, and the people in this area are very tribal, very isolated. So one neighboring province, one neighboring district may not have any affiliation with another district because it is over a mountain that may exceed 6,000 feet elevation. So there are a lot of difficulties that he has just merely even getting around the area. The infrastructure in Nuristan is not as well organized as it is in some of the neighboring provinces such as Logman and Kunar, just because simply the difficulties of manipulating the mountains in this area. That being said, and I've spoken to Governor Badr about this, that being said, this area is quite beautiful to look at. And as you can look around, it's nice to wake up and see some of these mountains every morning.
Yeah, we've gotten some really good video. I also, when on the helicopter ride over here, I ran about, I don't know, maybe 15-20 minutes of footage.
It's beautiful country.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I tried to prepare for the high altitude. I don't know if I did something good or the nutritional stuff I'm taking is working. I'm not really sure, but I haven't been bothered by the high altitude like I was told I probably would.
I expected a lot more challenges with the altitude. We have our security forces and some of our civil affairs assets and some of our engineers will hike up to one of these mountaintops to assess a little footpath that we're doing up there. And a lot of the training that we did in Atterbury helped support some of that. We have a platoon leader that pushes his security forces pretty hard to get into physical readiness for this training. So we've done a lot of work to try to prepare ourselves physically and mentally for the challenges that we've had out here.
Yeah, I doubt I would try to climb on those mountains any more than I don't climb the Rocky Mountains near from the coast.
I have tried to stay away, but I think my time is coming. I'll be headed up that mountain pretty soon.
We really go out. So do you have any specific projects you're working on right now?
We are actually currently working on a few projects down in the Alangar area that we are going to start processing soon. One of them will include a very large canal retaining wall that will cover 3 different villages. We're going to put a retaining wall or a supporting wall around an area that the village is asked to help keep the children safe. We've spoken to the chief of police about establishing a walkway, concrete barricade for some of the children so that they don't get hit by some of the oncoming traffic as well. In Nuristan itself, again, because of the area, it's been a little bit more of a challenge. We don't have the ability to send our troops to too many different areas in this province because of security concerns to do the quality assurance and quality checks on some of the projects. So in this area right now, we're working very closely with the PDC, the Provincial Development Council, to try to establish what kind of projects they want and started to establish a budget for them so that they can start working within their means or within their budget and start facilitating some of the projects in this area.
Is the Provincial Development Council Afghan people?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Coalition forces here really take a back seat. We are really putting a very conscious effort on making sure that the Afghans are taking care of Afghan issues. We really work very hard at trying to do that as well. It's very important to us that the people of Nuristan see Afghans doing the work and not so much the American faces. We really are working very hard at making sure that they see each other and really are able to support their own government, which is why we're working so closely with the government.
So you're here to help them help themselves, not govern them.
Absolutely.
Tell them what to do.
Absolutely. And we've had multiple conversations with sub-governors, with maliks and mullahs in this area to explain that our goal is to support the government of Afghanistan, to help them stand up on their own so that when we do leave they can support themselves and continue to make progress that we are helping them with. But in the end, our goal is to not stay here. We would like to go home.
We'll be back with more from here in Afghanistan.